December 24, 2002. A pregnant woman vanishes without a trace from a quiet California neighborhood. Her husband says he went fishing. The police says he went killing. But here's where the story twists. Because 20 years later, new evidence has surfaced that could flip everything we thought we knew about this case. Witnesses who were ignored. A burglary across the street that doesn't add up. DNA evidence that suddenly isn't so clear. So why did the system rush to judgment? How did a picture-perfect marriage turn into a national nightmare? What are investigators finding now that could prove Scott Peterson's innocence or guilt once and for all? And the biggest question of all, if Scott Peterson didn't kill Laci, then who did? Stay with me because this story isn't just about murder. It's about truth, lies, and the one case America refuses to forget. I'm Inspector Dave, and this is Crime Diary. It all started with a love story. A love story that should have ended with a baby's first cry, but instead ended with the sound of sirens. Laci Denise Rocha was the kind of woman people gravitated toward. Bright smile, quick laugh, always the one planning dinners, making life feel like a celebration. Born and raised in Modesto, California, she carried that small-town warmth everywhere she went. Scott Peterson was her opposite in all the right ways, calm, composed, a dreamer with ambition. He grew up in San Diego, played golf, studied business, and carried himself like a man who already had his life mapped out. They met in 1994, both students at California Polytechnic State University in San Luis Obispo. Laci was the one who made the first move. She left her number for him after seeing him at a cafe. That simple moment turned into a whirlwind romance. By 1997, they were married. By 2002, they had the life every couple imagined. A cozy home in Modesto, a golden retriever named Mackenzie, and a baby boy on the way. They planned to name him Connor. But here's where the first crack formed, and no one noticed. Laci was glowing, excited for motherhood, while Scott had grown distant. He'd started a new fertilizer business, spent long hours away, and seemed detached. Still, to family and friends, they were the perfect couple. And perfect couples don't just fall apart, right? It was Christmas Eve in Modesto. Laci was 8 months pregnant. She called her mom that morning, cheerful as ever, talking about dinner plans, gifts, baby names. It was supposed to be the happiest week of their lives. Scott told police he left home around 9:30 a.m. to go fishing at the Berkeley Marina, nearly 90 miles away. Laci, he said, planned to walk the dog and finish some errands. But a few hours later, their golden retriever, Mackenzie, was found wandering the neighborhood alone. Leash still on, gate wide open, and Laci was nowhere to be found. When night fell and she still hadn't shown up, her stepfather called 911. A pregnant woman, 8 months along, missing on Christmas Eve. The kind of headline that hits every heart in every home. Police rushed to the house. Everything looked normal. Keys, purse, wallet, all inside. It didn't look like a robbery. It didn't look like a struggle. It looked like she had simply vanished. But how does an 8-month pregnant woman disappear in broad daylight without a single trace? That's what everyone wanted to know. Detectives interviewed Scott that night. He said he went fishing alone. He even had a receipt from the marina. But his story didn't sit right. When they asked why he'd gone fishing on Christmas Eve, he said it was a last-minute decision. When they asked what he was fishing for, he hesitated. His answers felt rehearsed, too calm. The next day, police brought in dogs. Some alerted near the marina. Others didn't. It wasn't evidence, but it kept the spotlight on Scott. Meanwhile, Laci's face was everywhere. Posters, news reports, candlelight vigils. The entire country fell in love with the missing mother-to-be. And right beside her photo on every screen was Scott. He stood before cameras, asking for her safe return. He said he missed her. He said he loved her. But he didn't look broken. He looked controlled. Reporters noticed. Detectives noticed. Even strangers watching from their living rooms noticed. How could a man stay that calm while his pregnant wife was missing? As days passed, the investigation deepened. Scott had quietly bought a small aluminum boat just weeks before Laci disappeared. A boat he never told anyone about. Not Laci, not his friends, not his family. Why keep that secret? Why buy a boat right before she vanished? Detectives searched his truck, his house, his warehouse. But there was no blood, no struggle, nothing that screamed murder. Just that feeling that something wasn't right. Then came a call that changed everything. Late December, as the world searched for Laci, a woman in Fresno turned on her TV and froze. That face on the screen? She knew it. She'd been seeing him for weeks. Her name was Amber Fry. And the man she'd been dating was Scott Peterson. He told her he was single. He told her his wife had died, but Laci was still missing. Amber contacted police immediately. She agreed to record every call, every word, and what she captured would shock the nation. Because while Scott was on TV pleading for Laci's safe return, he was whispering to Amber about love and about their future. He even told her he was in Paris for New Year's Eve, when in reality he was in Modesto, attending Laci's candlelight vigil. Who does that? That was the moment everything changed. The charming husband, the perfect couple, the American dream was all gone. In its place stood something darker, a man living two lives and a wife who never got to live hers. And yet, even now, decades later, new evidence suggests maybe we still don't know the full truth. Witnesses claim they saw Laci alive after Scott left home. A burglary happened across the street that same morning. So, was Scott Peterson really the monster the world believed? Or did the truth drown somewhere in the bay that day? What do you think? Was this a cold-blooded act, or a case built on the wrong assumptions? Drop your theory in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe, because in the next episode, we will uncover the secret life, the woman who broke the case. You'll hear what Amber Fry recorded, and the chilling moment Scott Peterson's mask finally slipped. When the world saw Scott Peterson on television pleading for his pregnant wife's safe return, America felt sympathy. But one woman sitting alone in her apartment in Fresno felt something else entirely, fear. Because that man on TV, the one whose wife was missing, was the same man who had been sleeping beside her just weeks earlier. Her name was Amber Fry, and her story would flip the entire investigation upside down. Amber was a single mother and a massage therapist. Ordinary, kind, someone who believed in new beginnings. A friend had introduced her to Scott Peterson in November 2002. He seemed perfect, polite, charming. He spoke about life, family, dreams. He even told her he didn't have kids, wasn't married, and was ready for something real. Amber believed him. Why wouldn't she? He brought wine, flowers, stories about a quiet life in San Diego. He talked about traveling together after the holidays. But then came December 9th. Scott told her something strange. He said this would be his first Christmas without his wife, because she had passed away. Amber was stunned. How do you even respond to that? She tried to comfort him, assuming she was dating a man still grieving. 2 weeks later, his wife's photo appeared on the news. Laci Peterson, missing. 8 months pregnant. Amber froze. Everything, the stories, the timing, the way he avoided talking about his past, it all clicked. The man who told her his wife had died was now pretending to look for her. Amber didn't hesitate. She called the police. She told them everything, every conversation, every lie. Detectives were stunned. Up until that moment, Scott had seemed suspicious but not enough to prove guilt. Now, they had motive, deception, and a woman brave enough to help them catch him. Amber agreed to wear a wire. Every call, every conversation she had with Scott from that moment on was recorded. And what those tapes captured was chilling. On Christmas Eve, while the world was searching for Laci, Scott called Amber. He said he was in Paris celebrating the holidays. In reality, he was in Modesto, standing among mourners at a candlelight vigil for his missing wife. Imagine that. Hundreds of people holding candles for Laci and her unborn child, while Scott whispered into a phone about a fantasy trip with another woman. Over the next few weeks, Amber played her part perfectly. She stayed calm, careful, patient. Every word was evidence. Police watched as Scott's double life began to crack under its own weight. Each call revealed more lies, how he planned to start fresh with Amber, how he talked about love while detectives searched the Berkeley Marina. To the public, he was the grieving husband. But on tape, he was a man who'd already moved on. When the truth broke, when the world learned that Scott Peterson had been having an affair while his pregnant wife was missing, the story exploded. News vans lined the streets. Reporters shouted his name outside his house. America turned on him overnight. How could a man cheat on his pregnant wife? How could he lie so easily? Every smile he'd given to cameras now looked sinister. Every interview felt rehearsed. Every plea for Laci's return felt like a performance. The court of public opinion had already decided. Scott Peterson was guilty. But the investigators still needed one thing: proof. While the world watched Amber Fray's press conference, her trembling voice telling the truth, detectives were combing through Scott's every move. They found the boat, the fishing trip, the receipts, and then they found something else. Scott had purchased 2-day fishing licenses just weeks before Laci disappeared. He had maps of the San Francisco Bay. He had made a strange call from his cell phone near the same area where he claimed to have been fishing. Was it coincidence or premeditation? 4 months after Laci vanished, 2 bodies surfaced near the shore of the San Francisco Bay. 1 adult, 1 tiny body, an unborn child. DNA confirmed what the world had feared. It was Laci and Connor Peterson. The nation grieved. The perfect family that once symbolized hope now symbolized betrayal. And suddenly, Scott's calm demeanor made sense to everyone. Because how could someone panic about finding a wife he already knew was gone? When police finally arrested Scott, he wasn't at home. He was 90 miles away near the Mexican border. In his car they found $15,000 in cash, multiple cell phones, camping gear, his brother's ID, and his hair dyed blonde. Was he running? He said no, he was just visiting friends. But to detectives, it looked like the final act of a man who'd run out of lies. Amber Frey became the unintentional hero of the story, the woman who helped unravel one of the most infamous crimes in America. Her courage came at a cost. She faced public scrutiny, judgment, even threats. But she stood her ground. Every call she recorded became a piece of the puzzle that led to Scott's conviction. And yet, decades later, her voice still echoes in true crime documentaries, courtroom clips, and online debates. If I hadn't come forward, maybe the truth would have never surfaced. Even with all that evidence, the case isn't as airtight as it once seemed. New witnesses have stepped forward, claiming they saw Laci alive after Scott left home that morning. A burglary happened across the street the same day. And DNA evidence? Well, some experts say it raises more questions than answers. So, was Scott Peterson a calculating killer? Or was he a man trapped in a web of terrible coincidences? Because if Laci really was seen alive later that morning, then everything we thought we knew about this case might not be the truth at all. What do you think, detectives? Was Scott Peterson a cold-blooded murderer, or the victim of the perfect storm of lies and timing? The year was 2004. 2 years after Laci Peterson vanished, America's eyes turned to one courtroom in Redwood City, California. Outside, the streets were lined with news vans, protesters, and onlookers holding signs that screamed justice for Laci. Inside sat Scott Peterson, expressionless, clean-cut, and calm. Too calm. 4 months, the world had watched this story unfold, but now, it was time for the truth. Or at least, someone's version of it. The prosecutors didn't hold back. From day one, they painted Scott as a master manipulator, a man who wanted freedom more than family. To them, this wasn't just a missing person case. This was premeditated murder. They said Scott Peterson had grown tired of his marriage, tired of responsibility, and obsessed with the double life he'd created with Amber Frey. They told the jury he lured his pregnant wife into trust, murdered her sometime on Christmas Eve morning, and then dumped her body, and the body of their unborn son, into the cold waters of the San Francisco Bay. It was brutal, and it was convincing. They showed photos of Laci, glowing and happy, just days before she vanished. Then they showed Scott's photos, smiling with Amber at parties, laughing on the phone, pretending to be single. Every detail became a weapon. The secret boat, the fishing trip, the lies about where he was. Even his calm demeanor on television. Prosecutors argued, it wasn't composure, it was guilt. Scott Peterson, they said, was a man who chose freedom over fatherhood. But the defense had a different story, one that questioned everything. They said Scott was no killer. They said the police had tunnel vision. From day one, they locked onto Scott and ignored every other possible lead. They pointed to the burglary that happened across the street on the same day Laci vanished. 2 men were caught later, known criminals. Could Laci have stumbled upon them mid-burglary? There were eyewitnesses too, people who claimed to have seen Laci walking her dog after Scott left home that morning. If those sightings were real, it meant the timeline prosecutors built was impossible. The defense argued there was no physical evidence tying Scott to the crime. No blood, no DNA, no witnesses, not even a single confirmed trace in that boat. All they had, they said, was speculation, media pressure, and a nation that had already made up its mind. And make no mistake, it was a circus. Outside the courthouse, vendors sold t-shirts with Laci's face. Inside, every move, every glance Scott made became breaking news. People debated the case like it was a reality show. Was he innocent? Was he guilty? The lines between truth and television blurred until no one could tell where justice ended and entertainment began. Even jurors admitted later, it was hard not to be influenced by the media storm. Every day they'd go home to see Scott's face on every channel, every headline. For the defense, it felt like they weren't just fighting prosecutors. They were fighting the entire country. Then came the day everyone waited for, when Amber Fry walked into the courtroom. The woman who'd unknowingly dated a married man. The woman whose recordings had shaken the case open. She was calm but nervous, her voice soft yet steady. Amber told the court how Scott had lied from the very beginning, how he said his wife had died, how he told her he was spending his first Christmas without her. And then she said she saw the truth on TV. Her testimony hit like lightning. Every juror leaned forward. The world leaned forward. Then came the tapes. When prosecutors played Scott's recorded calls, the courtroom went silent. On the tape, his voice was smooth, emotionless, even romantic, while Laci was still missing. It didn't sound like a man in grief. It sounded like a man living two lives and losing control of both. The defense objected. They said those tapes proved only one thing, that Scott was a liar, not a killer. But the damage was done. Public opinion shifted completely. Laci's mother, Sharon Rocha, sat through every day of the trial. Her eyes followed Scott as the prosecution laid out their case piece by piece. For her, this wasn't just a trial, it was a nightmare. She'd lost her daughter, her grandson, her peace. And sitting just feet away was the man she once called son. At one point, she whispered to reporters, "I can't understand how someone can smile like that after killing the person they were supposed to love." Scott's parents defended him fiercely. They said he was being crucified by the media. They believed he was innocent, completely. But as weeks turned into months, even they could see the walls closing in. One piece of evidence hit harder than the rest. A single strand of hair, believed to be Laci's, was found on a pair of pliers inside Scott's boat. It wasn't definitive proof, but it was enough to paint a story. That Laci had been in that boat. That she'd never come back. Add to that the discovery of her and Connor's remains near the very spot Scott said he went fishing. And the jury began to connect dots that no lawyer could erase. Coincidence or not, it looked damning. After months of testimony, the jury deliberated for less than 9 hours. When they returned, the courtroom was packed, families on both sides holding their breath. The foreman stood and read the words that would echo for decades. "We, the jury, find the defendant, Scott Lee Peterson, guilty of the murder of Laci Peterson, and guilty of the murder of Connor Peterson." Gasps filled the room. Some cried. Some clapped. Scott just stood there, silent, blank, emotionless. Weeks later, the judge handed down the sentence. Death. The man who once stood as the picture of a perfect husband was now inmate number C-12311 at San Quentin State Prison. Even after the verdict, the case refused to rest. Experts began to question the investigation. Missing witnesses, mishandled evidence, and rumors that police ignored leads that didn't fit the narrative. And when new witnesses claimed they saw Laci alive after Scott left home that morning, people began to wonder, did the jury get it wrong? Did the media push too hard? Was this case about facts, or fury? Even Amber Fry later admitted that she sometimes wondered if she'd been used by the system she trusted. Because if there's one thing this case proved, it's that truth and perception don't always walk hand in hand. So here's the question, detectives. Was Scott Peterson truly the monster America saw on TV? Or was he a man crushed under the weight of lies, timing, and a nation desperate for answers? Time has a strange way of changing stories. It can blur details, soften anger, but sometimes, it does something else entirely. It cracks the past wide open and forces everyone to look again. For nearly 2 decades, the Scott Peterson case stood as one of the most infamous in American true crime history. A husband convicted of murdering his pregnant wife and unborn son. A sentence of death. Case closed. Or was it? Because in 2020, whispers started again. Whispers of mistakes. Of witnesses ignored. Of evidence that might not have been what it seemed. And suddenly the world began to wonder, what if Scott Peterson didn't do it? Years after his conviction, Scott Peterson's name started creeping back into headlines. Not because of new crimes, but because of new questions. The California Supreme Court overturned his death sentence in 2020, citing significant errors during jury selection. Some jurors, it turned out, had personal connections to domestic violence cases and might have carried bias into the trial. The court didn't declare Scott innocent. But for the first time in nearly 2 decades, the word retrial started floating in the air. And that was enough to crack the door open. One of the biggest cracks in the original case centered around something that had always been there, but was barely examined. The Medina burglary. Just across the street from the Peterson home, a break-in happened on the same morning Laci disappeared, December 24, 2002. Police initially claimed the burglary happened 2 days later. But years later, witness statements told a different story. A neighbor reported seeing a van and two men outside the Medina home on the morning of the 24th. That same neighbor also recalled seeing Laci walking her dog around the same time. The theory? Laci might have confronted the burglars. Things could have gone horribly wrong. It sounded wild at first, but here's where it got even stranger. Some stolen items from that burglary later turned up in police custody, proving the crime had, in fact, happened earlier than investigators had believed. If that's true, the entire timeline prosecutors used at trial, the one that pinned Scott to the scene, starts to wobble. Then came the witnesses who said they saw Laci alive after Scott left home that morning. A mail carrier said Laci's dog wasn't barking when he made his rounds, a detail that contradicted Scott's claim that Mackenzie was already outside. Another witness, a woman walking her own dog, swore she saw Laci walking near a park later that morning. And a third said she saw a woman matching Laci's description walking near a busy intersection around 10:30 a.m. None of those sightings made it into the prosecution's timeline. Why? Because they didn't fit the narrative. Now, years later, those same witnesses are being re-interviewed. And their memories, though aged, still point to one question. Was Laci still alive after Scott drove away? Then there's the science, the thing that's supposed to be black and white. Except, in this case, even that's been called into question. Remember that strand of hair found in Scott's boat? For years, it was treated as a key piece of evidence. But experts later revealed the DNA testing on that hair was partial, not conclusive. And the location of the bodies? Prosecutors said it proved Scott dumped them where he fished. But oceanographers who re-examined the data years later found currents could have carried the remains from other locations entirely. No one can say for sure. But when evidence this critical begins to blur, so does the line between truth and assumption. While lawyers and experts debate the facts, two families still live with the consequences. Laci's family has never wavered. They believe Scott is guilty. They sat through every day of that trial, every word of that verdict. To them, reopening this case feels like ripping open a wound that never healed. Her mother, Sharon Rocha, once said, "Every time someone says he's innocent, it's like losing her all over again." But on the other side, Scott's family has fought relentlessly for his freedom. His sister-in-law, Janie, became one of his most outspoken defenders. She spent years digging into files, police reports, and witness statements, believing that somewhere in that pile of evidence lies proof of his innocence. And then there's Scott himself. From behind bars, he's maintained one story, one phrase for more than 20 years. "I did not kill my wife." In 2021, Scott Peterson's death sentence was officially replaced with life without parole. But that didn't stop the push for a new trial. His defense team filed new motions, arguing that key evidence was mishandled and vital witnesses were ignored. They even claimed a juror, known as Juror 7, lied during jury selection, concealing her own past trauma to get on the case. If that's true, the verdict could be legally tainted. The court agreed to hear new arguments. For the first time in years, Scott Peterson was back in a courtroom, this time in a gray prison uniform instead of a tailored suit. And sitting just feet away was Sharon Rocha. 2 decades later, still fighting for her daughter's justice. Today, the Peterson case lives on in documentaries, podcasts, and endless online debates. For some, it's simple. The evidence, the lies, the affair, Scott's guilt is clear. For others, the missing pieces, the rushed investigation, and the inconsistencies point to a terrible mistake. It's become more than a murder case, it's a mirror. It reflects how we judge people, how the media shapes perception, and how fragile justice can be when emotion takes the wheel. One side cries for closure. The other cries for fairness. Both cry for truth. So here we are 20 years later, and the same questions still echo. If Scott Peterson didn't kill Laci, then who did? If the burglary really happened that morning, where are the witnesses now? And why did it take nearly 2 decades for anyone to re-examine the facts? Some people say it doesn't matter, that justice was served and the case should stay closed. But others can't help wondering. If even a small chance of innocence exists, doesn't justice demand we look again? Because what's more dangerous, freeing a guilty man, or leaving an innocent one to die in a cell? The Peterson case will always haunt America. It's a story of love, betrayal, obsession, and uncertainty. A story that began with a missing mother and a man everyone thought they knew. Maybe Scott Peterson is guilty. Maybe he's not. But one thing is certain. The truth is still out there, buried somewhere between the waves, the evidence, and the memories of that cold December morning. And until it's found, this case will never truly rest. What do you think, detectives? Did Scott Peterson commit the unthinkable, or was he swallowed by a storm of lies, love, and bad timing? Comment your theory below. And if you believe in looking beyond the headlines, hit subscribe, because Inspector Dave Crime Diary isn't done asking questions.